Welcome to episode 6 of the Grenglish podcast. Roll the intro.
I'm Greek Australian. That's why I look like this, but I sound like this.
This is the game I'm on now. I ain't just drinking normal water no more. To be honest, I used to be one of those guys who's like, when the restaurant, when the waiter comes and they're like, sparkling or still, I'm like, what am I, some fancy guy? Do I need sparkling water? Yeah, it tastes better. It's literally better for you. It's more filling because it's gaseous. So when you're trying to diet, it's like perfect. Sparkling water is the shit. I love it. Anyway, another week, another podcast. We've got a few topics, some heavy stuff to be honest, but it needs to be said, right? Diet is going well. This is kind of what's on my mind, to be honest. First kind of topic for me is diet. I've always been poor with maintaining a diet and discipline, but with these ocean swims, Spartan races, running races that I do, it's kind of pretty necessary to diet pretty well, to be honest. So it's going to be better, but the way I always do diets is I just build momentum. Like, I can't be like from bad eating to good eating overnight. I can't do it. It cannot be done. I wish I could. I've tried. It can't be done. I need momentum. So like every week I'll be like, what's one thing that you can improve? Like, what's one food you can take out of your daily routine, right? And for me, this week is like no more spanakopita, no more koluria, stimpuri. Just unnecessary. So step by step, and now we're slowly getting somewhere. I'm like 176, 177 centimeters tall. So, and I usually weigh between 80 and 90 kilos, which is pretty bloody heavy for such a short guy. And right now I'm about 82, 83, which is the good end. For this race, this march across Greece, I should be 76 to 77, to be honest. Because every kilo you lose when you run, especially long distances like that, it is like exponentially easier to run. So yeah, I really got to lose some weight. I'm going to be running more often. Usually what I do in my running is like I'll do 5 to 8K a day, maybe with a day or two off during the week, the weekdays, or one day off really. But I'll still do my 30 to 45 minutes weights and 30 minutes elliptical to burn the fat, and then run as well on top of that. What I will say is that on Sundays is when I usually do the longer distances, just to like crack into savage mode and just go crazy. I'd usually do like 10 to 21K on those Sundays. But now I've got to make that longer. If I want to average something like 80 to 100K a day for 10 to 12 to 15 days, right? I just got to get the mileage up. And really, like, my knees and my feet are the only concern that I have for doing this march across Greece. Because the feet just get super painful, knees just get a bit croaky, rusty, but you just got to get the mileage up in the meantime. I think what I'm going to do today is actually book the Ironman 70.3 in Vouliagmeni, εδώ στην Αθήνα, γιατί όταν πληρώνω για ένα race, για ένα swim, Spartan race, as soon as I pay, I'm like, oh shit, now I got to do it. Before you're like, oh yeah, I'll book it. Nah, as soon as I pay for something, I'm like booked in. I'm like, oh shit, I got to prepare now. So if I book the ticket, what? Discontinued. The fuck? Oh, I'm just seeing now the news that, okay. So they just moved it from Vouliagmeni to Marathon, which is actually kind of better. Wait, is it better? I guess it's better. I guess it's just like whoever the entrepreneur was who owned the rights changed it, I guess. I mean, it's the same fucking shit. It's here in Attica, so it's fine. So I will book it, don't worry, it's not an excuse. But yeah, as soon as I book something, a race, that's when I start getting pretty serious about working towards it. And that brings up the question, like, I've had a couple good conversations this week with people who know me quite well. And this last month has been different to my normal last kind of 6 or 7 years. Because the last 6 or 7 years, about 6 or 7 years, let's call it 2018, 2019, all I did, I stopped every other business and just focused on one thing, e-commerce brokers, and committed to the success of that one thing. And to be honest, I achieved that. And then I kind of got to the point where I'm like, this isn't the totality of my time and effort and potential anymore. So like, I should, maybe as a stoic, maybe as a workaholic, maybe as the way I grew up, I can't not work towards something. And these last 30 days, and definitely the last 6 to 12 to 18 months, I've kind of been thinking, what's my next thing, you know? What is the thing I'm going to be working towards? What's this bigger thing? What's the next thing? E-commerce brokers is still running, of course. It's been bloody 12, 13 years of me doing this shit. I'm not really ever going to stop, probably, because it's such a great business and people love what I do. So I want to continue to uphold that reputation. But the reality is, I can do more, and if I feel I can do more, I must do more. If something is possible, I gotta do it, you know. And even if I feel it's impossible, I want to see if I can do it, you know. A lot of the races and stuff and even stand-up comedy and this history shit I do is like, can I do it? Let's see, you know. And I think a lot of young men, maybe young women, I can't speak for young women, I can speak for young men. Young men in Gen Z, in my generation, 25 and younger, I think is the generation up until like, I don't know, 20 to 25 now. I think a lot of young men now have a few similar experiences to me, not entirely, because I'm definitely a bit different, but a few similar experiences, being that there's definitely what I found in not just my anecdotal evidence in my life, but also reading books of professors and people who've done studies and meta-studies and metadata of analysis of young men, is that we are lonelier than ever, we are more lost than ever, and we are raised mainly by our mothers without that big father figure. And I think that leads to a lot of things down the road that surprise us, and we kind of feel lost about that. And I'm definitely in that role. And that doesn't mean your father wasn't present, but maybe he just didn't, you know, talk to you, or didn't really engage that much in family life. Maybe he just worked his ass off, like most Greek fathers or most immigrant fathers. And probably all he did was just work from the morning before you woke up to night before you went to bed. After you went to bed, you barely saw the guy that much. And you can't hate on people who do that. But at the end of the day, it kind of fucks you up. It leaves you lacking in some areas of your life. One flavor espresso done, on to the second. I buy them 2 at a time, because I'm very Greek. So, my point is, I'm hearing a lot of stories. I've heard this, a lot of my life, because a lot of my friends were older than me, and a lot of my age and younger than me now. And it really is like a pandemic, an epidemic of male loneliness. And a lot of the way we cope with that comes out in the hobbies that we have and the way we go about life. I mean, for me, obviously, since day one, I've always been a very lonely person, to be honest. I ain't gonna front. I think it's pretty obvious for anyone who knows me even remotely well or has seen any of my vlogs, any of my 350 vlogs over the last 7 or 8 years. I was a lonely kid because my parents worked their ass off. They're immigrant parents, like they worked their ass off, so I was at home doing my own shit. And I know if I'm alone in a room and with a laptop and internet connection, I'm gonna work. I'm going to put a workout plan together, I'm going to put a business together, I'm going to make friends online, I might play some video games, but I can have a whole life just there. And I'm going to be productive. But I'll be lonely. And I think a lot of dudes grew up like that. Definitely a lot of e-com people I've met grew up just like that. Like, we watched the same YouTube videos, movies, TV shows, and we were kind of like a lot of the same stuff. That's why a lot of memes are so easy to make for young men and jokes, because it's because we all grew up on the same shit, especially in the West. Like, it's just so common for us to kind of be similar and have the same interests. But look, that's why I think young men are so drawn to people like Jordan Peterson, and on the other side of the spectrum, Andrew Tate, because they're dudes who know what the fuck they want and they went after it. So they're like, oh, dude, guide me. Now, whether that's good or bad, I don't know. But it's better than nothing. Better than just being lost at sea. But look, with that being said, bringing it back to what I was talking about, the last 30 days, I'm like, all right, I obviously want to do something new, and that's why I'm going to do this big push of content. And I'm just going to put out this Grenglish podcast, and probably no one's going to watch it. So whoever's watching this part, besides my editor, good on you. But we can clip it out, any clips and stuff, and that'll probably get some views. If we're talking about interesting topics, basically. But I like the idea of just building up habits of doing stuff that you do every day or every week, and doing it for 10 years and seeing. That's basically what I do with e-commerce programs. I'm like, if I set up the systems and just shut my eyes and just shut the fuck up and work, probably in 10 years, it's probably going to work. You know, things are going to come from it. And it did. Even like when I wake up, I'll drink water with like a lemon or something, have a coffee, do a Duolingo test, read an article in Greek to improve my Greek, write in my diary, and then start work. That morning ritual, to be honest, I never really skip. For at least a couple of years now, 3, 4, 5 years, I've pretty much done that every single day. Like honestly, every single day. Like my Duolingo streak is like 685. You probably can't see that. But I'm killing it. And that was mainly Spanish, but now Greek, because I want to get my Greek to a business level. Even though it's not even at a kindergarten level. Okay, it's a bit dramatic, but maybe. But yeah, these last 30 days, it was interesting. It's first month here, you know, it's always important to reflect on new projects, and it's gone pretty well. The history stuff is going really well. Like, I didn't realize how much people liked history, even though I love history. I know people would take to it so well. And we're already talking to museums, foundations that support museums, universities, to sponsor similar content, to bring, you know, history content to young people. So I'm like, I can get paid to talk about history. I'm like, I was doing that for free. What the fuck? This is fantastic. So yeah, I mean, that's just the beauty of the internet. I keep saying at every podcast how dope the internet is, but it's true. So yeah, you know, the last 2 days has been good. Athens has been kind of too hot, even for a Greek Australian. I have a trip to London coming up, which will be fun, see some friends, maybe some better weather so I can do some longer runs, 20, 30, 40, 50K. So, you know, I have my London trip, then I'm going to do a road trip with some of my friends from here and from London, and then road trip with the team of my team. So it's going to be very social month. That being said, kind of back to the same topic, like male loneliness, like my friends, a lot of my friends, even the ones I'm going to be seeing this month, I see once or twice a year, or for like a month or two, every 2-3 years, you know. Especially if you're some entrepreneur, e-com guy, digital nomad person, you really have very weird relationships. I made my favorite ever video that I've ever made in all of history, of over maybe 400 or 500 videos, is one called Digital Nomad Dream or something by and the audio comes from an article that Mark Manson wrote, and he is that guy who wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I just took that audio and put it over some of my footage. I rewatch it all the time because he really tells the truth about the digital nomad dream and how lonely it is, really. But it's interesting because I would like to support and give back to the community and do some philanthropy and stuff. And sure, I do the university talks in Greece and Cyprus, almost entirely for free. And I think that's a good way to give back. However, I think that mental health is something I've always had, my battle with, anxiety, whatever it might be. So I feel like that's something I might want to focus on. However, Greece and Cyprus have some of the lowest either reported, well, definitely reported, mental health issues and suicide rates in Europe. Now, to be honest, I immediately call that into question, not because I don't think, mainly because I know that in Greek culture, mental health issues, στα αρχίδια μου, bro, άσε με, ποιος, τι έχεις προβλήματα, πήγαινε στο δουλειά ρε, άσε με. Πήγες στην δουλειά να έχεις μία καφέ, τσιγάρες, να πεις κάτι, άσε με. Πήγε για ένα μπάνιο, φάει κάτι και have 8 hours of sleep, you'll be fine. Like parents, community, they just don't give a fuck. And it's kind of embarrassing to say, oh, well, I went to therapy. Therapy. What? So we still live in that old macho mentality, which quite frankly, I think is fucking stupid. Because if the kid's either going to kill himself or go to therapy, yeah, I'd prefer the kid to go get therapy. What? Of course. And Greek men, we have this macho thing. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but when it gets in the way of your health and how healthy you are to other people and the people you care about, yeah, it's a problem, man. Now, suicide rates, regardless, you can't bullshit the suicide rates. Suicide rates in Greece and Cyprus are the lowest in Europe, pretty much, which is really good. But yeah, I'd definitely be interested in trying to see how I can support, the resolution or the mental health in Greece and Cyprus, if it's a problem. If it's not a problem, I'm not going to just spin my wheels just to say I'm helping. But mental loneliness is that. But I also think it's a bigger problem in the far west, the Anglo-speaking countries. But anyway, that was a depressing start to the episode. I think here's something, kind of related to the history content I've been doing. I never am disappointed by the amount of fun I have from the adventure of history and learning history and always being a student of history. And it's such an adventure to be interested in this topic of history. And I know most people are not, which I think is just honestly, you're missing out on one of the best parts of the human experience by not being interested in learning and being open to learning about history, because your human experience now is limited basically to your own life, the lives of some of your friends and family that you might empathize with, and how does Craig, see the world, you might think one day. And then maybe the celebrities of your time and sports stars, but that's about it. Whereas me, who's always been interested in history, I'm sitting there on a Sunday afternoon reading about, going from Wikipedia page to articles and thesi, reading about the lives of, 17th century sailors of Greek descent. And I'm there reading, I'm living their lives through those books and through those words. And you don't get to do that because you want to know about what Kardashian, whatever the fuck the Armenians are called, their lives. Like, who the fuck cares, Whereas when I go somewhere, I can live through my era because I'm there now. If I go to a random town in Greece, I'm living my era in time now. Like, what's the food like now? What are the people like now? What's happening now? Then I'm also living in the era of Independence War, Greece, Balkan War, Greece, World War II, Greece, World War I, Greece. I'm living in Ottoman occupation Greece. I'm living in Venetian occupation Greece. I'm living in late Byzantine Greece. I'm living in, late 900s Byzantine Greece. I'm living in Justinian period Greece. I'm living in Roman period Greece. I'm living in Golden Era Greece. I'm living in Hellenistic Age Greece. I'm living in Bronze Era Greece. I'm living in Mycenaean Age. Like, I'm living in 14 different, centuries of history and how they lived, because I'm there reading about it, and I've read about it before I went. Or I watched a couple of videos. Like, it's not that hard. And I think the biggest, and it's such an honor. Honestly, I'm privileged, and it feels like a privilege and an honor to even be able to do that. Because don't forget, I don't know, call it 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, learning about history was limited to rich people and nobles. One, because books weren't weren't available like that. Knowledge wasn't available like that. Let alone, imagine the access. You don't have to imagine the access that we have to different types and different sources of history from around the world. 100, 200 years ago, let's say 200 years ago, before the Industrial Revolution, and maybe definitely 500 years ago, before the book press was invented, like, a commoner like me, basically a serf, like my parents, my dad was a farmer, my grandfather, my mom's side was a farmer. We were serfs 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, basically. There's no way, we had no access to books. They weren't literate, let alone have access to books, let alone access to, let's call it 500,000 sources, narrowed down to 50,000, narrowed down to videos and consumable content. Like, our access to information, honestly, is insane right now. We have more access than any noble ever had, right? And it's always interesting to see, like, Caesar talking about Alexander. He obviously studied Alexander. And he's like, you probably read one book about him. And we're 2,000 years later, and we have more sources than you, and you're fucking Julius Caesar. It always blows my mind. Not to mention when you get pretty active in it, and you're a bit of a detective in history. Like, I'm so unnecessarily proud that I can look at a statue anywhere in the world, whether I'm in Armenia or I'm in the US, in New York, in a museum in the Met. If I'm in Australia, if I'm in Denmark, if I'm in Greece, if I see a marble head, which are usually nobles and rich people and emperors, I know for a fact I can guess who it is. I know, you know what? I'll probably be right. That's how good my history knowledge is of emperors, Roman emperors. And it's fun. It's like a quiz game every time I go. And if there's a girl or a friend with me, I'm like, hey, that's Caracalla. They're like, how the fuck do you know that? I'm like, yes! I'm so smart. It's fun. And then they're like, oh, what era is that? It's like, well, it's red brick, so it's Roman. So, it could be early Roman Republic, it could be Roman Republic, Roman Empire, the Palatinate, or it could be, Byzantine. Who knows? They're like, why the fuck do you know that? It's fun to be a detective in history. I might be looking at a couple of bricks, but I can be a detective because I'm bringing in my sources and my experience and what I've read together. And it's fun. And when you read about so many different eras and so many different people, and especially when you live in Europe and the Mediterranean, as it relates to Roman and Greek history, this is one adventure that sticks with me. And one day I'm going to go through my family tree and the book and the genealogical study that I had someone do, because it's a fucking adventure. Great adventure that takes us to the second in charge of the Roman Empire. Yeah. My blood. Crazy, huh? But for example, so Lascaris is obviously the name, as you know, of the Nicene emperor, i.e. when the Fourth Crusade came through and they took Constantinople, the emperor went to Anatolia and started the Nicene Empire, and that was a continuation of the Roman Empire, while the Latins were having their fun for 50 years in Constantinople, fucking shit up, and taking all of our artifacts and putting them in Venice and shit. So that family was called Lascaris. Now, I knew that name because I just read it on a Sunday afternoon, probably on a Wikipedia page or a book or wherever the fuck, saw it in the video. And it was a cool bloke, and then that family, ended up retaking Constantinople, so a really cool family, and becoming a noble family, of course. Now, remember that would have been 2018, 2019 when I read about the Lascaris family and the Fourth Crusade. They then years have gone by since I read it, and then I'm in Nice, France, Francais, Francia, Galia, because my friend Georgia lives in Nice, or lived in Nice now. And she's like, oh yeah, come to my place, you know, we'll where she was renting, we'll have some pizza, whatever. I'm like, dope. And I maybe went to a place every Thursday after work, grab some pizza, talk shit. And every time I ring the doorbell, I'm just looking around, and I never once knew what building was next door. The building next door, maybe the 100th time I went by, I see it says Palais, P-A-L-A-I-S, Palais, I don't know. What am I trying to speak French for? Palais Lascaris. I'm like, wait a second, Lascaris? What the fuck? I know that from somewhere. Not to mention, Niki is a Greek colony. Let's not get into that. But I'm like, I know Lascaris from somewhere. And then I Google Lascaris, and of course, Lascaris is, the famous emperor family. And my normal life of just traipsing around Europe brought me back into contact with Lascaris. And obviously, to explain the connection, the Lascaris family, of course, when they retook Constantinople, they married into noble families around Europe, and I believe they married into the Burgundian rulers' household, or Savoy. And they ended up being there in the 17th and 18th centuries. Another 2 years go by, and I'm like, I can't wait to go to Malta, because I've been to Rhodes, and I love that. I love, their building style, very interesting. Spent a month in Rhodes there, living inside the castle, and I'm like, I can't wait to go to Malta, and the famous siege of Malta that, the Turks never couldn't win. And I'd love to go there. And then and whenever I'm on a phone call with a client, and it's going for a long time, or maybe I'm not even speaking to, maybe it's a buyer, seller, broker call, I'm on Google Maps just looking, because it doesn't take any brain power. I can focus on the call. I'm just looking at Google Maps, and I'm looking at Malta and Valletta, and I see one of the main bastions in Valletta is called Fort Lascaris. And I'm like, what are you doing here? What? Lascaris? So I research, and of course, one of the leaders of the Knights Hospitaller was Lascaris, of course, again, marrying into noble families, blah, blah, blah. Which then I thought about how ironic that is, because the Knights Hospitaller were a faction, let's say, or a group that was born from the Crusades to help and take care and, protect people going to the Holy Land, Christians going to the Holy Land. I assume they took part in the sacking of Constantinople in the Fourth Crusade. If not, they're all French and Italians and Germans anyway, so they're all the same to me. And of course, the Lascari gets kicked out, and they start again, and they retake Constantinople. So they're enemies. Lascari and the Knights Hospitaller, in my books, maybe specifically, I haven't done enough research, but on paper, they're against each other. They're belligerents, right? And then, a couple hundred years later, Lascari is the leader of the Knights Hospitaller. Like, that's kind of crazy, no? And again, he defeats the Turks in the battle. Well, the fort helps defeat the Turks at the battle, at the siege of Valletta. It's just crazy how history always ties into each other. And I remember I was dating a girl, and here in Athens a couple of years ago, it would have been 2021 or 21. Maybe 2, I don't know. Maybe 2020, I don't know. Years are stacking up now, getting old. However, we were sitting on Kolonaki at Da Capo, my favorite cafe there. And the street's called Zakharov. Sounds pretty Russian, no? I said to her, I bet you, I think her name was Claire. I bet you that name, being Zakharov, which is Russian, has something to do with the Greek revolutionary who was Greek-Russian and helped get independence for Greece. And now, I didn't know the guy Zakharov. I did not know. But I know that there were Greek Hellenes, Phil Hellenes and Greek Russians who supported the Greek Revolution. And I was dead on accurate. So I didn't know, but I knew the patterns, right? Which is crazy how you can fill in the gaps like that. And I've read enough history now where all the gaps are slowly being filled up. And I'm remembering most of them. And my friend Ross said to Mills and my other mates, like, I think George might be a bit autistic because he's remembering a lot of shit. Which is pretty hilarious. But yeah, all those gaps in history start filling, and you're like, I'm at the point now where if you point at anywhere on the map and pick a year, I won't know the specific thing that happened unless it's like something pretty important about what happened in that country in the specific year. But I'll pretty much tell you what the era was, what was happening in that, 10, 20, 30, 40 year era. Some names, some specific stuff, what the context of geopolitical context was. That's pretty crazy, And I'm not that intelligent. I don't have some photographic memory or something. It's just because like I've been on this adventure of learning about history for so long. And that brings me to my final topic of how, for me, Greece, and I'll put Cyprus in there, and maybe, Italy more generally, as a tacked onto it, definitely Italy more generally, but it's just harder for me to access it because I don't know Italian. Even though I know a bit of Latin, it's just harder to access. But for me, being in Greece and living in Greece for the majority or the largest minority of the last 7 or 8 years of my life, it's such an adventure. And for me, it feels like Skyrim, like a role-playing game, like an open world role-playing game, more than anywhere else in the world, as it relates to history, let's say. It feels like Skyrim, it feels like a role-playing game, an open world role-playing game, because I'm staying now in Galicia, in Athens. I've never stayed in the suburb before, but I'm looking at street names. And I'm like, and every single Greek city, pretty much in the center, has a lot of the same street names. But a lot of random streets are called random things. And I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? Where's that from? Blah, 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 blah. And then sometimes I ask people in the street, like yesterday. Sometimes an old guy, we asked some old guy yesterday, he didn't really give us an answer, so I went home and researched it. But like, it's named after people, revolutionaries, ancient, modern, Byzantine, like even foreigners who helped Greece. And so every Greek city, every Greek street has a mystery to be solved. And if you're a historical detective who loves learning, you'll get to the bottom of it and you'll learn shit. And that's so fun, honestly, it's so much fun. Yeah, so I mean, just walking around Greece, walking around Athens, it's always just a fucking great time for me because I'm learning about the history of Greece and I'm stumbling upon it. Like I've been in and out of Greece since I was a kid, since a baby, since I was born, for 26, 25 years now, and I'm still stumbling upon history. It's so fun stumbling upon, pieces of the puzzle that made me Greek, that make me Greek. So it's honestly a pleasure and an honor and a privilege to be able to learn history and slowly discover it step by step. Because you think, I studied the shit out of ancient Greece and Golden Age Greece and Hellenistic Age Greece. That's so done. Like everyone knows that shit, to be honest. But Byzantine and the last 2,000 years of Greek history, a lot of people, it's not out there. People aren't, promoting the shit out of it. People aren't making videos about it. People aren't making content about it. And you got to kind of be here to see it, to view it, to understand it. Especially for Greece and Cyprus. The last 2,000 years aren't as famous as the previous 2,000 years. So it's so much fun to walk around the streets of Greece, little villages of Greece and Cyprus. It's always just fun. But yeah, look, that's this episode of Grenglish. And I will see you in the next one.